This, I understand, could be attributed to the use of marijuana. It causes errors in time, space.
Thank you for joining us on Talking High Culture. We are live with another Wednesday night.
We live? Damn, man, we weren't even ready. Marco going live over here without even telling us. What up, everybody?
We just hit live. Boofy Fubu in the chat saying, "Yo, let's go, peeps!" And then Mr. Scully in the chat back at it again. Thank you so much. We are back at it again here on Talking High Culture. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We just came back from a camping trip for our last podcast, and we have so much to tell about it. Boys, why don't you guys go ahead and get started off?
We had a fantastic time. It started off with a long drive, 3-hour drive, that concluded in a very sketchy drive to our camp lot.
Ooh, that's not gonna lie. Still getting used to driving out here, like on the sides of mountains and shit, was terrifying for me. I was having anxiety attacks like the whole way up, but at the same time, it's beautiful.
So I feel very similar to Chris in that aspect. For when I first started driving, I was in a similar situation driving.
Similar.
Similar situation driving in Arizona to my grandmother's house. It was a 16-hour drive, and I did the last two, and the last two just happened to be the most dangerous out of the entire drive because we were hugging a cliff and very high cliff edges and stuff. There was a wall on the side, but still super sketchy. And when you're just getting into driving, that stuff's scary. I was white knuckling for about an hour, just tight to the wheel. Oh my God. Oh my God. Don't make a wrong turn, Logan. Your dog's in the car. Your family's in the car. Don't do it.
Yeah, I feel like that's where my head would have been at if I was actually the one driving up the mountain. Thankfully, my lady, she's more experienced driver from growing up out here in California. She was used to those kind of roads. So thankfully, she's a confident driver because I feel like me being that paranoid, like having that anxiety, like in the driver's seat, thinking, don't make a mistake, don't make a mistake.
Yes, yeah,
That's that type of mindset that you're gonna end up falling over the mountain because you're so focused on not fucking up that you're gonna screw everything.
That Logan sentiment of don't you got your family in the car, you got your dogs in the car, you got your cat in the car, like
How's it going together?
I was so concerned for that, and I'm always concerned when I'm driving. Fortunately, this time around, I didn't have to do the drive there or much of the drive back, and I thank my lady for that. But there have been plenty of times in road trips in California, driving to San Francisco, driving to LA, where I've had to bare knuckle it for the majority of the drive, and then when you hit those those hills, and you hit those turns, you're like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. But fortunately, we made it here safe. We're back here again, and
We're all above the clouds, y'all.
up
We were
above the clouds.
we were literally high culture in so many ways. Honestly, that was the coolest thing, was literally just kind of driving up and realizing once we got to our campsite that we looked out and the clouds literally just looked like the ocean. But I will say, when next time we gotta like do like a scouting trip or something for some of these campsites.
Yeah.
Folks, you would not understand the incline that we sat on the entire trip.
I don't think unless there was a like actual review of the entire camp lot that I feel like they purposely don't want to show you or like tell you beforehand because that would discourage most people from getting the camp lots that they did. Like the adjacent camp lot to us, which is the one we spent a lot of time at, the lot then closest to that, a little bit further away from us, was a terrible camp lot. Absolutely, we thought we had it bad. They only had their parking lot spot and then a fire pit that was only flat around where the fire pit was, and there was no sitting area. So basically, everything they had was on an incline.
Oh yeah, it's right that one spot.
When we walked
up
down
at
the
the top
hill,
of the
where
top of the little hill from our spot
yeah,
around the
where
bend.
you guys were looking at the
Yeah.
view, basically that camp lot right behind it
It's just a parking space. Essentially.
was just a parking space.
I noticed that when the dudes got there, they gave them a longer parking space though in that spot because they both there were 2 cars in there, but yeah, it was a tiny little
I was
area.
gonna say you guys like yeah, and
Yeah, it looked like they pretty much just slept and camped out in the cars.
So I will say that as far as the review for the overall park, the reviews for for the overall campsite, the reviews were fairly positive. I think it was like 4 out of 5 stars for the overall campsite. But in that particular lot, all they had was one image when you're reserving that lot, and it was accurate to what we saw. But that image was very blurry. It was definitely not the highest quality image, and I would not have been able to tell the the landscape necessarily, like the
No.
topography, like how up and down it was.
Yeah,
Right now, Logan's busting up the 7 Leaves grenade milkshake grenade.
7 leaves. I haven't smoked 7 leaves in a minute.
That is correct. A mente.
Actually, it's been a long while for me.
We'll get the zoom in on post.
All right.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's literally just falling asleep. I kept waking up so many times, especially because where our tent was,
Mhm.
like, and how we had to position ourselves. I would start up here.
Mhm.
When I woke up, I'm all the way down here. Like my feet are pushing like the tent wall down, like down still, and I'm like just trying to figure out. Like throughout the night, just scooching up, scooch, scooch, like just worm crawling my way.
Absolutely.
I think I woke up. Yeah, I woke up the one time. That my lady, she was sleeping next to me. Woke up, and then she had slid down in the middle of the night and was ended up like at my legs.
Oh wow, that far down.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
It was kind of funny, but it sucked because it was uncomfortable.
Yeah,
Sleeping
100%.
in a chair around the campfire was so much better.
Well, Logan did say that when on his side of the tent, that he used that a little bit on the incline, so he kept sliding down as well, and he was constantly having to adjust himself. I'm sorry for that. Packed a I packed a queen size mattress, blow up an inflatable queen size mattress, and we forgot the we forgot a way to put to charge the thing. We forgot a way to plug it into an outlet, and unfortunately, at the last minute, we had to go to Walmart and get a car volt converter in order to plug an AC adapter into the car, and then therefore charge and inflate the queen size mattress. That was comfortable to an extent, but I'm a big guy, and I think that allowed for the air to flow out a lot quicker. And my son and I, who were sleeping together, and my lady who was sleeping on the cot that was intended for my son, but he was not having it. So he slept with me on the air mattress, and he slept good because I'm over here inflating his side. My side's going like down because of my weight. And when I would get up, I could see him like, yeah, like a waterbed type situation. I felt bad for the kid because he's just trying to sleep, and every movement I make wakes him up. We had to go to the bathroom 3 times in the middle of the night. Oh, when you have a family, you're gonna have to go to the bathroom 4 or 5 times in the middle of the night to walk everybody out there in the middle of the woods when you go camping. Because as the dad, you got to do that. Just letting you know.
Yeah, so as being a person that shared the tent, yeah, I definitely heard everything that they did, and I was awake for everything they did. So, and we're pretty light sleepers.
So for me, in the middle of the night, I didn't even walk all the way to the bathroom. I just walked behind my tent and was just pissing right there.
Exactly.
When it's you, absolutely.
My lady was doing it too.
People,
She was not going to walk her ass all the way up that fucking hill in the middle of the night.
good for her.
I was like, hey, just we bring a roll of toilet paper. You know what I mean? Like it's biodegradable. Just walk behind the tent. Walk behind the tent in the middle of the night.
We had a lot of dogs on this trip, but we also had humans. Obviously, I was the only human that did not lay a foot in that bathroom. because one, I didn't go number 2, and 2,
That's crazy.
I only went number 1 outside.
That's
I
crazy.
never even got to look in the bathroom because I didn't need to go.
Wait, that's crazy. You didn't shit at all.
No. No.
What's wrong with you?
I
Are you
spent
just that backed up, or were you just holding it in
dude,
until you got home?
when I got my blood clot in my lung, I spent 4 days in the hospital. I didn't shit once.
What the fuck?
Not once.
What's wrong with you, bro?
I
Did you not eat or something?
Bro, for one, in the blood clot situation,
Like
you have to be you're attached to all this fucking hardware, and there's somebody holding a fucking like a piece of like heart monitor, all that good stuff. They're outside the door. It's like a drug test almost, but they're right there. So you feel so uncomfortable crapping. It's unreal,
No,
bro.
I'm making them
And
making their life miserable.
And I was in the room where everybody's essentially like dying or in the worst like situation possible.
Oh yeah,
It was bad.
damn.
And you do not feel comfortable pooping in that environment whatsoever. Well, not even a little bit. So, and I'm not cool with somebody being right outside the door when I'm crapping. You know, it's not a comfortable
I mean,
situation.
I get that, especially if it's someone you don't know. I mean, because like having a conversation in your house, like with someone like they're like out like near the door or something, or like not directly outside, but like kind of shouting through the door. That's different because it's like, oh, you live with them, like that's your person, like or whatever, like your family. But a
Even a
stranger,
friend.
I don't know. It depends on the mood I'm in. Either I'm going to be uncomfortable, or I'm going to sit there and be like, I'm about to make your life uncomfortable unless you just give me that thing to hold and let me bring it in the bathroom with me.
I
Otherwise, you're going to be subject to whatever I let out when that door opens up and wafts right in your face.
Mhm. I don't think I've had an issue having to make a movement, like knowing that there are other people outside on the other side of the door. But there have been times where I'm conscious of the smell afterwards, and if there's nothing to like spray down, I do feel a little embarrassed. And at the same time, I'm like, well, you should know to wait a few minutes before going into the bathroom before the next person. Come on. And if it's emergency for you, you're not going to care about the smell. Sorry.
So I do not like being around people when I crap, obviously. But the only exception I've ever made was when my boys, before a football game, we used to get team dinners. So we'd all get hella pasta and carbs and stuff to fill us up before the game. And a lot of the dudes would have bowel movement before the game because they don't want to be crapping on the field or needing to crap on the field or anything
Just fucking
with all the pads on and everything. But so we would all do pregame dumps is essentially what we called it. It was a pregame dump. And I I didn't do it often, but the one time that I was like, "You guys going? You guys going?" They're like, "Yeah, bro, we go to this one. We go to the girls stalls because after school there was no girls in there.
Oh, sure.
There was
Yeah.
nobody in school, so we
Yeah.
could go in the girls stalls. They were still open. The janitors knew what we did on those days, so we would all hit up because they have the more toilets that have stalls. You know, we're not trying to look at each other deucing or nothing, but there would be 5 dudes in a fucking
Girls.
girls' bathroom taking deuces, just shooting the shit, laughing our asses off. Because we would be talking like this, and then you hear be like somebody. then you, and then some of us were playing music just to drown it out and shit. I definitely started playing music, dude. I'm like, I'm not trying to hear none of
The
you
Suicide
dudes,
Boys
bro.
while you're taking a crap.
I was like, I'm not trying to hear any of you dudes. I'm gonna put the music right here, dude. I don't want to hear none of this, and I'm gonna walk straight out. I'm not. But the bathrooms in SoCal for that place, my high school was supposed to be a community college, so those bathrooms were nice.
Oh, okay, cool. You didn't want. You said you walked straight out. I mean, I imagine you washed your hands at least, right?
Of course.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Yeah, because I have to.
Had to
I have to
clarify.
have something to be smelling while I'm in there. You know. What I
Yeah,
mean?
you
That's
don't
not
want to.
shit.
It's like, okay, cool. This is the kind of soap that smells okay, at least.
Exactly, bro. Like it's so bad. It was hella funny though. The interactions you have with your homies in the stall. So I imagine that's what girls feel like when they're like talking to each other because it was hella funny, bro. Couldn't be more funny.
But could you just imagine that kid that doesn't take the pregame dump sits there, gets laid out on the field, and just fucking absolutely just annihilates his
No,
hands.
no, I know a kid.
Like where you see it on the field, like he's not Like he's not like getting out of that without everybody at that game knowing.
Yeah, I know a kid on a weekend game as a sophomore. We played for like the B team because we had so many kids, and we went to a high school. And this kid said he was a lineman, and it was like the second half or something. And on the field, after I make a play and I'm off, defense is on. He's like, "Yo, I almost shitted on the field," and I'm like, "What?" He says, "Dude, it was about to come out. I went up for a block. I pushed him, and it was this close."
Probably
And I
turf
said,
headed.
"What did you do?" He's like, "I ran to the bathroom the next play, bro." I told coach I was out of there, dude. If I didn't leave right there, it would have been over. Game over. They're deuce on the field. Deuce on the field.
Yo, that's fucking crazy.
Which play did you do? Number 2.
Coach, we running through.
And with that, we're gonna go ahead and transition to our main topic for tonight. Comedy. It's what it is the poop humor, fart humor, shit humor, crap humor is always funny to any human being. I feel, there is a gross element to it, but also hilarious because everybody does it. Some of the best comedians have been able to turn poop jokes into l- not so low quality because they
Not so
usually
lowbrow.
yeah, they usually talk about the experience itself and not just the crap, right? It's the situation of being
Oh.
there's somebody on the other side of the door.
Yeah.
Oh my god, what do you do?
I actually, yeah, I was watching a podcast not too long ago, and comedian Eric Griffin was talking
Okay.
about something where he was in like an airport bathroom or something, and having like time like there was another dude in the stall, and he heard and like he basically I think it was something where like he was trying to like be quiet about his shit
Uh-huh.
because he knew he was having some explosive stuff, but like it ended up just coming out. The guy tapped on the wall and just said, "Hey man, jam on it."
Jam on
Like
it.
being able to like tell like a shit story like that, make it a funny joke, like it's like you know what I mean, where it's not so it doesn't come off as like low class. At
Yeah.
least like the way he described it.
Even some sketch comedies can do a little bit play it off. So like one thing that it is a little lowbrow humor, but still plays off very well is in Austin Powers, the scene where in the casino and then he's choking the leprechaun in the in the toilet. Who does the two work for? And the guy, the cowboy in the stall next over is like, "That's right, you show that turd who's boss."
We'll get through this.
I forget about that scene, bro.
Like even that directly dealing with crap, it's still a very funny scene, and the double entendre of just that plays off very well.
And he's like fucking shoving him in. Dude, oh my god.
And then the dude, he gets out of the stall, looks behind, he's like, "Hey, what you eat?" Like he sees the guy in the toilet or whatever. Like he sees the guy's head stuck in the toilet, and he doesn't even question that it's like a person. He's just literally asking, "What'd you eat?" Yeah.
Who's some of your favorite comedians of all time for you guys?
Of all time,
Yes.
I definitely have to say Robin Williams. Definitely Dave Chappelle's up there. I do appreciate Bill Burr a decent amount. Chris D'Elia,
Mhm.
I do really like actually. Um, oh, what's that girl's name? Eliza Scherzinger.
Okay.
She's a funny lady.
Oh, she's the one that has the shrimp joke.
I think so. And then
Yeah.
the one special I watched, she had the joke about like being older, telling like our generation telling stories to our grandkids of like, oh, like behold, let me tell you the story of Snapchats. And then Brian Regan, 100%, and then George Carlin.
Nice, nice. I think the ones that basically are my type of comedy the most. If I definitely know Jim Carrey is one of them. The facial humor,
Jim
the
Carrey.
movie humor. Robin Williams would be probably up there too. With my timing and stuff has to do with a lot of those two actors
I see it.
slash comedians, and then number three being now that I see him, it would most likely be him because he is. And not a lot of people like him nowadays for some of the controversy he's been in, but I think he's a fantastic actor, and he's not actor, comedian, and he's always for the joke. He's willing to really, step out there and probably be Louis C.K. Honestly,
Okay, Louis C.K. Yeah.
Bro, he really steps on he one of my favorite like stand-ups of his was when he was talking about being broke and making like going negative be hella funny.
Mm.
Like I can't remember the thing, and this is why I'm shit at explaining things, so I'm not even gonna go into it.
It's okay. And Louis C.K. He definitely is comfortable with being the butt of the joke, especially his own joke. He's very quick to make himself the butt of his own joke.
Yeah.
That self-deprecation type humor it works when you're able to have that delivery alongside it.
Yeah, there's a few things I've seen him in where, yeah, I did appreciate his, like you said, his delivery, his cadence, like the way his timing with certain things. Like he does have, like he is a funny guy.
Mhm.
Like honestly, this is one of those situations where it's weird and it's uncomfortable, but it's like you like separate art from the artist sometimes, you know, because it's the same way when it comes to music, anything. Like you can separate art from an artist. You can appreciate that. Okay, you know, especially if you had laughed at a joke of theirs or something in the past. If you'd appreciate in the past, you can't sit there and be like, just because you found out they did some bad stuff, and be like, oh, now I hate everything. It's like, no, motherfucker.
You hated what you experienced.
Yeah, it's like, no, motherfucker, you still like it. You would still, you're still probably laughing at some of those same jokes or making references to that. So just acknowledge it and say, like, hey, like, you know, I don't like what he did, but yeah, the motherfucker made me laugh.
I think anybody who says they don't like Michael Jackson after they learned what he did, big air quotes on that.
He didn't do anything.
Exactly. That's why I'm saying learned air quotes. You're a goddamn fucking liar. Because if you say I don't like any of those songs, I won't support any of that. You're
It's like
There is a level of separation of the art from the artist, right? You have to understand that there's public discourse, there's media involved, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that's involved in that situation. I'm on the same page as you guys. I believe that not all of the stuff that is said about him is true, right? I believe that he is someone who has been affected by a very traumatic childhood, right? And that played out very poorly as an adult.
amen.
Right. Having that said, separating the art from the artist and Louis C.K. again, yeah, willing to be the butt of the jokes, self-deprecation. Bill Burr, I think, is someone who I like. He has some of the most straightforward comedy, and when you think that he's gonna join part of the like, oh no, he's gonna go with like the controversial route just to be controversial, he usually doesn't. You know, he usually still sticks within the what is considered to be right by the working class. He's a very working class type guy. I love his humor. He has a show, F is for Family, on Netflix, where it's an animation, very perfect of working class environment. Robin Williams is another top for me as well. I think that just his overall positive delivery of a lot of the jokes that he was trying to do, especially in the movies where he tries to portray a character who is ultimately flawed but has comedic elements to him. That's very important to me.
I love his darker movies too, though. Like, because he
Yeah.
still finds ways to like bring like some joy even in his dark roles.
Yeah, absolutely. Jerry Seinfeld is another one that I like, only because his comedy is so dry that
What's the deal with that?
it's very what's the deal with that. B movie kind of sold it on me, honestly. And then I was like, okay, let me go ahead and take a look at Seinfeld as a whole. I watched Seinfeld as a show, and then I looked into like, oh, how he and what's his name, Larry David wrote the show Seinfeld, and how a lot of a lot of the episodes were at least based off of exaggerations of their day-to-day lives. So they were just writing a show about nothing. And then in the Seinfeld show, towards the end, where Seinfeld is getting a deal for his own show, they're like, "Well, why don't we just write a show about nothing?" And then they're like, "Yeah, that's so crazy. It's an idea that's so stupid. It has to work." Yeah, and then, yeah, it became meta. It became
Bro.
self-aware.
Yeah, and you see some of the stuff that became pop culture references to this day, like my father referencing "No soup for you." Literally, bro. That is a interaction of people getting food in New York. That's literally just a normal interaction. And they're turning it into one of the greatest comedy skits of all time.
Mhm.
It's a skit when it's just real life. But sorry to interject, but I did want to say what that Louis C.K. joke was. He went negative in the bank account, and then he went to a mall or went somewhere and there were free samples. And he said, I can't afford that. Because if I have negative money, I can't even afford free. You know? And I thought like thinking like that is insane. That's exactly what comedians do. Even though it's like so easy to pluck out of the air, in terms of the way you can think about it,
Mhm.
it's hard to really dive that deep into it.
There's an
but-
element of that to a lot of comedians.
Yeah, damn, that's one I forgot. I haven't thought about in a while. Like looking at the list, Bernie Mac.
Yes,
Oh,
that's what I
Bernie
wanted to
Mac
talk
was
about.
Such a goat.
Rest
I
in
honestly,
peace.
I appreciate his show a lot.
Mhm.
One of my favorite roles, though, still is as bad as it is to kind of say like, well, it's not because it's a funny movie. When he plays the cop in
Don't be a menace.
yeah,
Big
South
Keys on the-
Texas.
I don't like black pepper. I like black keys on the piano.
Ah, good thing.
That movie, I watched that movie time and time again. It's a
Yes.
classic. I love that
That's a
movie.
good one.
That is Bernie Mac, 100% encapsulated.
Yeah, I could definitely also Andy Kaufman. I forgot about him. He's an old school guy.
Yeah, very.
He was
cool.
he was one of those ones that was kind of like a little controversial because he took his stuff like way too far. It would always be like a little bit too like method with his like acting comedy.
Sure.
I think a lot of these people on the list that we're referencing right now, looking at none of other than the ones that we've stated. If we haven't stated Adam Sandler, he's another one.
Yeah,
Norm Macdonald,
Tim
he's another one.
Allen.
But everyone else that I'm seeing on this list isn't too revolutionary. Adam Sandler, gotta love Adam Sandler though. All the movies that I've ever seen him in,
What was your first Adam Sandler movie?
I would probably have to say, just off memory, it would have to be 50 First Dates.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's crazy.
I can't remembering one. And dude, I swear to God, we got that as a blockbuster and watched that as a family. Yeah, 100%, 100%.
I think my
Favorite scene in the movie would probably have to be, oh my God, when she beats Rob Schneider's character with a bat,
Oh yeah,
protecting Adam Sandler.
yeah.
Because as a kid, you love stuff like that. Like you love that stupid humor like that, and that they used that in the trailer too.
Yes,
That was huge in the trailer. So I was a young enough to even remember the trailer.
Honestly, I think my first Adam Sandler movie was, I don't know. I think it was Happy Gilmore.
Oh, Happy Gilmore. Yeah, there we go.
Gilmore was my very first Adam Sandler movie.
One of my faves. One of my faves. What was your favorite scene in that?
Ooh, favorite scene.
You jackass.
Yes.
You jackass.
Uh, no, I think it was my favorite scenes that made me laugh the most when I very first watched it was when he fucking when he knocks the air conditioner out the window and the lady had jumped on and like she's after like she saw him on the car window or whatever and he drops that shit and she's just laying off like get this off of me. He just looks down like but calmly at the same time I think you killed the Mr. lady.
My favorite Adam Sandler movie is definitely Big Daddy, right? And there's so many scenes that I love from that movie.
Wait,
Uh,
you said favorite.
Uh,
Is that your first Adam Sandler movie? That's
yes.
what we were going.
Oh, sorry. Favorite and first.
Because
right?
my favorite would
Oh yeah.
because
Yeah.
my favorite would be different.
Big Daddy would be my favorite and first, at least as far as I can remember, because it was something that my father showed me, at a very young age, and I just fell in love with that movie right away, and I felt that's how I got into like watching Adam Sandler movies with my dad because he was cracking up with that. But one of my favorite scenes is Kangaroo Song.
Especially probably now in your life when you can relate to that so much more.
That is encapsulated. It's just like, yeah, bud.
Bro, my favorite part in that is when he pees the bed and he's like, "Oh my God, it's a fucking lake," and it's literally the entire bed.
Nice newspaper.
He does that with every message.
Logan can probably understand this one now that he's getting into stocks, but it's when they're throwing down the soup cans in the supermarket.
Microsoft just went down 3 points.
And she's like, nice. At least I'm teaching him about finances
Yeah.
and not working at Hooters.
Honestly, yeah, that's a classic one. But I feel like if I was gonna go with my favorite like Adam Sandler movie in general, it's a tie between Mr. Deeds and Eight Crazy Nights.
Oh, Eight Crazy Nights.
Like, but it's for me that's like I can't decide between those two because I'm like, well, Eight Crazy Nights is animated, so of course they can do a little extra with some of like the stuff. So that's but like if I'm just sticking to what he's actually like live in, it's probably Mr. Deeds. That's a great movie, especially the brother. I am a bit of a sneaky sir.
Sneaky.
I feel you are. I feel you.
You go, please take away.
I feel you are
It's like,
underestimating the
if
sneakiness.
I would really like it if you would.
He starts
Like,
going crazy with
can't
it.
feel a thing. But I feel like the lexicon of Adam Sandler movies that you need to show your child as they are ready, or even when they're growing up, are going to be like 51st Dates, Mr.
Sure.
Deeds, Happy Gilmore, Big Daddy, and maybe one more in there that I'm not thinking of. Click is good.
Click is a great movie. Yeah, Click. Click is such an underrated movie. I cry at that movie actually.
Yeah.
Like that was his first like movie that made me like, oh, he has emotional range.
So real talk,
You
you
know?
know, 2 weeks before I went into the gym, I saw clips of Click on YouTube, right? And it was those moments that make you cry in the movie, you know, where it's so big, it's like, what the hell happened? And she's like, this is what happened. And you're just like, damn, like, fuck, I'm feeling it, right?
Explain
Uh,
that more.
um, I don't remember the exact context, but you know, he's getting all big, and then he's like, "Whoa, like what happened?" And then she's like, "Well, I left. Like you're this is like
Busy with the business.
yeah, you were busy with the business, and you were doing this,
Oh,
and like you just
yeah.
kept focusing on your work, and you were trying to sell the I think it's like real estate or something like that. Like
You know, he was an architect.
architect,
Yeah,
yeah.
he was an architect.
You're trying to finish it, and then she ends up is like, yeah, and I left. I left with this fool, and he's like, damn, like
Bro, so funny. Adam Sandler plays the craziest roles that literally are not meant for him. He played an astronaut talking to a spider. He played fucking an architect.
Yeah.
Like, those are the gnarliest archetypes for people in movies, and they're always played by hot people. But if they're not played by hot people, they're played by Adam Sandler.
one thing really quick for Adam Sandler in particular, he said that a lot of the roles that he chooses or that he's made for himself because he's like self-produced a lot of it with the what is it that production company? I forget the name of it right now, but
Terrific.
yeah exactly.
I remember.
Is it Madison Films?
Yeah, Happy Madison.
Happy Madison. Happy Madison Films. And sorry. What was I was going with that? Adam Sandler, Happy Madison Films. In that production company, he wanted to be an architect. He wanted to be an astronaut. He wanted to be this. So he makes himself that. He wanted to be a football player. He makes himself that in the movie, right? And then that's his way of being able to portray that and be that.
Yeah, one of my other favorite ones was it was a pretty realistic kind of like version of it seemed like it could be a regular person kind of thing, like it was more his life when you describe it like that. I forget the name of the movie, but I know it had like Jason Segel in it, I think. Or no, wait, was it Jason Segel? Eric Bana was in it.
Who we thought what? What
It was Adam Sandler, Eric Bana. I know that for sure.
Just put that in, Eric Bana.
Yeah.
Sorry, we have
Where is
we
it?
have Jamie looking it up on the side. All right, Jamie, what is it? What do we got?
Funny People. Yeah.
Oh,
That was a really good one.
I've never seen this.
Actually.
I've never seen it.
It's a good watch. It's like a realistic version, I think, of like because he's in that movie. I think he plays a retired
comedian.
comedian or something like that, and like he just starts going through like a real dark phase or something. Like I think he got sick for a little.
Talks to Eminem.
You know, maybe,
Talks to Eminem.
maybe I don't know. See if we can find a clip.
Isn't that the one where he talks to Eminem and Eminem gives him like this whole like thing and he's like depressed and shit? He's like, dude, you have an out. You got something.
I
Maybe
think
that's
it might
Andy
be.
Samberg.
Yeah, Funny People. Eminem.
No way.
Wait, click on-
No
yeah.
way. I got it right. Lord have mercy. This the viewers can't see this, but yeah, we're not gonna watch the scene. But I was right. Apparently, Adam Sandler does come up to Eminem in this movie and talk to him, and Eminem is playing a very depressed individual. He's like, I think he wants to just kill himself or something. What is what you get in the scene? I'm downplaying the fuck out of it. I wish I could explain things better. I'm sorry, people.
We could just get a quick refresher.
Yeah, I just had to ruin it.
Yeah. So let's see if we can make it make sense.
You want to normalize it? Yeah.
Yeah, because we're just restricted on it. It's okay. In the meantime, take the chat.
But
Nothing.
no, I think right now nobody's in. Who? Yeah, that's right. Because he got sick and shit. That was the whole premise of the movie. That's what it was. Yeah, and then like he got better again, but like I think he was hiding it as well because like there was like an ex or something that came back in his life, and they were reconnecting. It was something like that. Yeah.
How they can make a mockumentary like that, dude? That's still kind of based in real life, but not. So he could still basically be himself, but he's not himself,
Yeah.
but doing real things at the same time, doing real sets, and they're using that in the movie. That's crazy. He did real sets. They might have actors, but
No, they did. That wasn't like a mockumentary movie. It was actually a movie.
Yeah,
Like they were playing different people. Like
yeah.
he wasn't playing like Adam Sandler.
Mockumentary
Because-
mockumentary isn't the right term for that one, but I understand what you're saying is that they're
Mhm.
attempting to address the life of a comedian who goes through something, right? I think that the mockumentary style is one of my favorite
Yeah, I
styles
agree.
of media, though, because documentaries are so informative, but mockumentaries have an educational but also performative element to it. And if I could even hope to achieve half of that level of aspect to what we do here in Talking High Culture, maybe we should make a mockumentary. And maybe, yeah, maybe that is something that we should explore and see what ideas we could actually fully explore with that. And Talking High Culture ultimately is a platform, right? We are a media service right now. We're doing a podcast. We have other things. We have a website. We have a couple of different things that are under our belt, and we're always looking to expand and pivot and diversify ourselves, find what it really works for us. But I think that we all have an interest in film, and we all have an interest in wanting to make content, right? Yeah. So definitely something that we should all be excited and be on the lookout for. Let me go ahead and switch this over.
saw that coming from a mile away. Yeah, you don't know who you're gonna play with. You better fight with a motherfucking man. You don't even know where your motherfucker stand at. Yeah, we going. Man, you just ruined the flow. Yeah, we back in this motherfucking hole. Here we go.
With more modern movies, Kevin Hart is someone who is very popular. I feel. How do you feel about his comedy in general?
Nah, I
It's a
mean,
little miss, right?
I do remember his only good special was the one where he's talking about his teacher and shit.
Yeah.
That special. Exactly. That's a great special, and I do remember laughing hysterically at it. I did absolutely die to that special, but that's his only good comedy and stuff. And even yeah, it's very played out at this point. I don't think he's a good comedian. He's a good actor comedian. And even then, he's whatever.
Yeah. As far as people who have played out, I definitely have my sense of that. I grew up with, like, let's say George Lopez, for example. I feel that George Lopez is very funny, but there is an element of like uh, played out to some of his comedy. It still hits home. I still love him, and I still love all the comedy. It's nothing about like anything bad, but there is only so much of it that I'm like, there is a bit of stereotypical reinforcement to it
Yeah.
that I don't exactly always agree with.
But that was also that era.
That was
You
also
know,
that
the
era.
era that he was mainly doing a tour and everything, and his comedy, like that was the comedy of the time.
Yes.
Was playing upon that. Like
Uh-huh.
he was in that same lane with people like Dave Chappelle, like having to do a lot more of the black jokes and race jokes. Like especially any comedians that weren't white,
Uh-huh.
essentially.
Yeah.
Like you were playing upon stereotype jokes.
They had to in order to actually like
Unfortunately,
be on camera and stuff.
like there was plenty that they had plenty of jokes that weren't. You know what I mean? I'm saying that's all that were about.
Yeah,
but,
no,
like,
that's why I love
they-
George Lopez because it wasn't just about that,
But
but
they
he
had
did
to-
ham it up for the camera.
Oh, yeah.
I will say that. I feel like Fluffy didn't really do that as much, and then he started doing that. And then I don't really like Carlos Mencia all too much because we talked about it earlier. He's a joke stealer a little bit,
Yeah,
a lot of it.
when I first grew up, like when he first came out with the show, obviously,
Fun.
I liked it a little bit,
Mhm.
but it did get old like
Yeah,
real quick.
quick.
Like I was like after even a couple episodes, I was like, okay, like every episode is literally the same now. Like there's nothing different. Like it feels like you're repeating shit.
Well, fact check this or cut this out if I'm wrong, but I believe Pablo Francisco, another comedian we were listening to earlier today, I believe he had a very big problem with Carlos Mencia because a lot of his material was directly ripped off, and a lot of the
Oh yeah,
comedy sketches, a lot of the stand up,
plagiarizer.
yeah, a lot of the stand up that Pablo Francisco did, Carlos Mencia just did as skits, right, in his show, and it's like that's kind of plagiarism to an extent, you know.
I mean, it pretty much is. You're
Yeah.
just instead of reciting it, you're just making a visual for it. But essentially, you're just taking someone else's idea.
Marco's gonna grind some more of that milkshake grenade up, please.
Ooh, milkshake granada.
Okay, so
Smell that bag.
more people on this list. Let's
Okay.
talk about good jokes. Let's see. Good
Can I get one of
jokes.
these?
Oh, you want one?
Yeah.
You can go get it at the fridge. Yep.
Damn, actually, damn.
I wish we had like a
That smells fire.
plethora, a surplus of Happy Dads because I want to do a chug challenge. But
No,
see, but people like degeneracy, and degeneracy is good for clips.
not right now. Degeneracy is only in moderation. Degeneracy was the camping trip.
Oh,
where
Chris.
by 7 a.m. because we're sitting there at a campground not doing anything, I'm cracking open a Happy Dad for the beginning of the day. That's how I started the day, and I literally kept drinking nothing but Happy Dads that entire day. All that one day was.
You mean the day we left back home? You were drinking Happy Dads?
I had like 2. No, I had like 3 on the way home.
You're like, and that was all day.
No, 2. No, I had a few when I got home.
Breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
But the day, like the first day we woke up and everything, like I literally had nothing but Happy Dads.
So, ladies and gentlemen, me and
It was
Chris
all time.
and Marco were talking about playing Smite, downloading Smite on our
Let's go. I can be downloading
devices.
Smite.
I have a PlayStation. Chris has a PlayStation. Marco
I have an Xbox. I have an Xbox and a PlayStation.
Xbox Game Pass on his PC, so he's going to use that.
But I'll probably use the Game Pass.
So we're all going to be playing Smite here soon. Smite is a fun lane type game like League of Legends, but you play first person or right behind, essentially third person, but like
no, it's still it's the same overview gameplay. It's not first person or anything. It's still tabletop view. Yeah,
isometric top down. Sorry guys, my
still
bad.
like
I'm a terrible explainer.
like a
Things we've
tabletop kind of.
established this.
But you play different gods and deities from all cultures.
Kind of like okay, I'm just gonna stop.
League of Legends, but with gods and deities, essentially. Tower defense,
Cheers, brothers.
mid lane, left lane, far lane.
I love
There's little different like objectives to go through too that will give your whole team a boost, like stat boost and shit like that, goal boost.
Yeah, dudes. I wanna run a lane with the homies.
I used to do pretty good at that game. I
Gosh,
used to play with a few bars.
Please don't. None of you take this the wrong way. But yeah, I want to run a lane with the homie and freaking defeat some foes.
Dude's trying to run lanes with the homies.
Yeah, and conquest or assault, or arena. Sorry.
Yeah.
You would know. You know a lot about that. We used to play video games on the podcast, ladies and gents. Let us know in the comments how you feel about that.
Do you like occasionally seeing this kind of, check out if you want to see us play anything specific because we do love our games. Like we could always like do like game nights or something like that, or like go on journeys where we're playing like we play a little bit of a game here and there. Like we take turns doing some shit.
I think we should definitely make a game of not saying like so much.
I'm gonna keep doing it because I noticed I was doing it and I wanted to do it, so I'm gonna do it.
Like doing like this.
Yeah.
Yo, we got to be good at talking as English speakers, ladies and gentlemen. We need to be able to put our point across without saying like, or and. We need to be able to
Proper etiquette and
think
whatnot.
the way we're speaking and have good vernacular as the way we speak and be stupendously
Manners maketh
magnificent
man.
at the English
Vocabulary.
Thank you. That is my TED Talk.
Ooh.
Try to produce something as good as that, my friend.
Thank you for joining us on Talking High Culture, where we talk about all things elevated in culture. We talk about bee culture. We talk about agriculture. We talk about talking high culture. Everything is above elevated with us as individuals. we hope to speak on platforms and get everyone into higher planes of existence, spiritual awakening. Don't forget that you have to open your third eye in order to truly see, because real eyes, real eyes, real eyes.
Oh my god!
I think you got that a little messed up there.
I definitely did.
Realize, real eyes, realize, real
To put a
lies.
microphone on your fingertips.
That is insane.
Realize, real lies.
When we
Tongue
were out
twisters.
when we were out camping, one thing that I felt was very important was having that experience of us together doing the cheers, doing the hike, going out in the night, seeing the stars,
Yeah,
seeing the
honestly, that
view.
was a real that first time when we got there when we all took that night hike up there, just three of us and like kind of just laid out under the stars.
One thing we want to emphasize is one thing we want to emphasize is camaraderie and the type of environment we want to foster for not just ourselves but the entire world at the end of the day, because we believe in the true American culture should be more enacting a world culture. We got so many different peoples from so many different backgrounds here in the United States, and we should really celebrate that by giving everybody a platform, by giving all things a platform. Sometimes we talk about comedians, sometimes we talk about music, sometimes we talk about cannabis, sometimes we talk about video games, sometimes we talk about what's going on the other side of the world. We talk about other countries.
Speaking about the other side of the world, I came across some wild things lately. Like in my Instagram feed, my algorithm's going crazy. Did you know that like just like last year, not maybe not even a full year ago, the prime minister of Japan got assassinated
Yes.
in public? Yeah,
So
just right out in public, just got like people are just getting assassinated. World leaders are still getting assassinated left and right. Like I would think that'd be like something important to hear. Like
I don't know about left and right. The
like there's been some crazy stuff still going on. I'm like, yo, that's why. Like maybe I need to pay more attention to news sometimes, but I feel like at the same time I don't pay attention to news for things like this.
around the world, you have different types of crimes that are engaged everywhere. Japan has an extremely low rate of crime, but the types of crime that do end up being committed over there,
Or wild.
the types of crime that do end up being committed over there are definitely insane, pretty wild, pretty out there and severe. When it comes to the assassination of the prime minister of Japan, the gun that was utilized was a makeshift gun. It was made at home. It wasn't, because firearms are illegal in Japan for the regular civilian. So he had made a makeshift gun and shot the prime minister to send a message, and it was it set a precedent for Japan, and a lot of the public were not necessarily in favor of assassination, but did not necessarily find that his death was all too mournful, let's say.
Yeah, it's not like they were sad about like, okay, we lost him as our leader, but like a lot of majority of the public didn't like him as a leader.
Yes, because majority
They
of the
didn't
public
want
didn't like him.
they don't want being assassinated. But that's crazy, like to think like, oh, like world leaders are just still casually being assassinated out here. I mean, with that and then the thing with Trump, like
Yeah.
almost getting got. I'm like, oh, like that's still like pretty easily done. It feels like these people are having
Yeah.
so much easy access, and like
I
that's
feel
wild to me.
to an extent, I don't know if this will put me on a list. To an extent, it should be, right? It should be that easily accessible to
I love that you said that.
it,
No, yeah.
your public statements are public statements. If somebody can come find you, somebody's gonna come find you.
Yeah, I believe in the fact that if you're somebody like the insurance guy who got killed, that you should be more afraid of going outdoors in general. If you're doing that to people and okay with it and okay with literally murdering people essentially because of your policies or whatever that are having to be withheld or
You're talking for reference. He's talking about Luigi Mangione,
yeah.
who murdered the CEO of the insurance company.
Yeah. So I believe that he was completely justified for what he did.
Yeah.
Anybody would have done the same thing.
It's yeah, it's really hard for people to feel saddened by that or to feel like that wasn't justified. when it happens. Should death be justified for any reason whatsoever? No. But when you have someone who performs that particular action, exactly, you get, myself included.
Yeah.
Myself included.
So in the sentiment of if we're able to have free speech, if we're able to bear arms, then politicians should be afraid that people will be angry at them for
Mhm.
certain things and be radical over certain ideologies. There we go.
That's why you shouldn't radicalize your base. You should absolutely not make these people so over fanatic on guns and fighting against people of different color, because ultimately when you charge them up so much and they have no one else to turn to, yeah,
Anarchy.
it's gonna go straight up to you. Like, it's gonna all fall on their own head, because they're the ones that doomed themselves from the very beginning by raising up all this rage.
Oh hell yeah.
Hmm. Oh hell yeah.
Yeah. We all know that Chris is somebody who wants all that good stuff, but
That's that chaotic energy that I need.
definitely feel like that.
I really truly do. Honestly, like not to cut you off, but I just want to like
Oh, you do? Yeah, you do.
I want to emphasize that point that I really can't stand our fucking government, and I think having a revolution in anarchy would be pretty prevalent and helpful for us to establish something better.
Nope. Chris wants that, but he literally is so stressful in like the most not dire situations. So he is not somebody who wants that, and he's a complete fucking liar.
Hold on,
Yes.
Chris. You would have to evacuate up the hill of a mountain, and you would be so excited.
Yeah,
Come on,
I would tell Chris.
You're
get-
doing it, yeah.
I
But
would tell
like,
Chris,
why
get
put
fucking
yourself through
real.
that?
Because I need, and if I have to, I have to.
I think that
not survival.
so. If anything, the revolution mentality is shown is what's being played out with how Elon Musk and his Doge organization has just dismantled different federal organizations, because that's what would happen in a revolution realistically. That's what is that all the stuff would just stop working, and we didn't even need to go resort to violence in order for these things to start happening and for all these systems to start failing. Part of the reason why there wasn't so many park rangers to really check up on us, and it was only that like couple of bit, we were able to just kind of freely do what we want, is because there wasn't a whole lot of park rangers that are actually being employed right now, because all the federal park funding is gone. Right? They have to pay people. We need park rangers to upkeep the parks that are there, that for those campsites. With otherwise you have overgrow, and I don't know if you saw those pile of branches and stuff like that that were just up the hill that were off to the side, but like animals didn't do that. Right? Those are park rangers. Those are people organizing that, say, hey, like, we're gonna come pick this up later, so that way it doesn't become tinder for the forest.
Yeah, so I would say we need park rangers, and then there's the whole sentiment of what you're gonna have. Wow, you're gonna have hella park rangers in places like Yosemite because those are the more beautiful places. Like the other places don't matter, so you're not gonna employ as many at these certain spots because we only have one in a Valley View. You know what I mean?
Well,
Why only have one when this place has so many? It's not only that sentiment, but it's kind of fucked up when you think about all these places matter. Is what I'm trying to get.
let's say somebody did get bit by a poisonous snake while we were up there, right? There was a site for us to go reach out for emergency services. Let's say there's only one employee there. They're the ones that have to drive us to the nearest local medical facility for whatever reason under those circumstances. And another person gets bit by a poisonous snake while they're dealing with us.
You know what's crazy about getting bit by a snake? You want to know what type of snake you got bitten by. So you have to identify the snake.
Yeah.
You have to look at it and get a good fucking exactly. If you're not freaked out as fuck,
Or if it doesn't escape.
exactly that too. And so in a heightened state, you have to actually try and figure out whether or not be like, what type of snake was it? You're like, I don't know, I just got bit, obviously. But it's so insane because that would help out a lot when you need anti venom. So what do you do in that situation?
Yeah, so that's why these people do need to have employed. Yes, it does seem like our taxes go to money being wasted on land and stuff that's not being. But it not see. Here's the thing. Here's the thing is that after being investigated, the reports have found out that it has been, dude. Is that's the thing is in recent news is these actual investigations are finding that in the Doge they promised to reduce trillions of dollars in the federal budget, right? what they actually accomplished was only reducing $2 billion, which still sounds like a lot, but a far cry from the trillions that we previously had. And it turned out that the federal government was actually using these funds pretty bare bones and very low funds. Like it turns out that they were very efficient for what they were doing and getting a lot of shit in the media and on social media because of it, throughout the entire process. But these federal government employees were just doing their jobs and working with what they had, doing the best they could with what they had, and now all their jobs are being cut. Why? Because there's too many of them that are people of different colors or women or identify as trans or whatsoever, right? And that's unfortunate because now, yeah, there was only two park rangers tops when we were there. And if somebody would have gotten bit by a snake, it would have been a lot tougher situation only having one person having being able to help us, right? Than having a team of people being able to assist us.
Yeah, I think people around the world understand that you help yourself by being as safe as you can when you go out to wilderness situations. That you shouldn't rely on people like park rangers, but having multiple or plenty of park rangers available to at hand to be able to help you is nice.
Yeah, and that's an emergency. Their job. We got Noob Gamer. You guys should do this like in shorts vertical format. You will get more reach.
We're gonna take clips from this podcast and definitely do that.
Yeah,
Chat too.
that is a new chat. Thank you for joining us, Noob
Thank you for
Gamer.
joining us, Noob Gamer. Good
Definitely.
looks on that.
So you'll see some of our
Hit for Noob Gamer.
hit for Noob Gamer.
Oh, yeah.
You'll see in some of our shorts, we do take the lives and chop them up into videos. We're working on doing that, but thank you for that's exactly the direction we're taking it. Thank you. Now, when it comes to park rangers, now that's an emergency. That's an emergency situation. Again, on the general, they're the ones that are upkeeping the park. They're the ones that are making sure, taking notes on what animals are there, making sure that there aren't any poisonous snakes in an area where there are campsites and such. Like doing the best they could, maintaining those fencing and going after animals and making sure that there aren't things there that could potentially attract other animals. Cleaning up those trash cans afterwards.
Exactly. That was a big thing that happened in another one, Yosemite. Now that I just mentioned it, because there are so many different locations in Yosemite that are used as bathrooms, just points of interest. So they know those points of interest need certain amenities. You know what I mean? So you have to, and that those spots build up trash in those trash cans.
Especially also depending on the type of park you're in, what the environment is like, what the local wildlife
Just in
is.
general.
No, but I feel like depending also what local wildlife is, the size of the park, you know what I mean, depends on the amount of like people needed, but also like if there's a higher risk of like bigger animals or more like vicious predators,
No,
you know what I mean? I feel like that would also call for having a bigger ranger team than having a park where there's not really any apex predators or anything like that. They could do with having a little bit of a smaller budget, smaller team because they don't need as much equipment or as much people to like be on that like high alert or like handle heavy duty rifles or anything. If they don't need, they can deal with like a smaller pistol or tranquilizers, shit like that.
I can speak on the area that in particular.
So yeah,
in the area that we were in particular, there was signage for the nightlife there. And while there didn't seem to be any indications for like large mountain lions, it did look there for sure coyotes and the foxes and yeah, and the giant bone we saw, right? And deer and elk and stuff as well. But as far as like coyotes, um, there is an element to having an appropriate size team to deal with that, right? And you do want to make sure that there are people that are there to be able to deal with potential predators as well and know how to keep them at bay.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say earlier. When it comes to Yosemite, I make Yosemite an example when it comes to needing park rangers because that's the most high traffic type of park that's like that. So
especially being like a national park.
Exactly. That's exactly what I mean. Yeah. So even at the not national parks that are campgrounds like the one we just previously visited, I think they need just as much attention because the only way to preserve that type of experience is by keeping it clean. And you can't always rely on people to do that themselves because you saw stuff like trash build up at places like Yosemite because not people aren't always ready to keep their trash with them or they're
Locking
not
up
ready to not be able
security.
to dispose their trash. So sometimes they
People aren't as responsible as we were.
and
Yeah,
we
they
aren't
take advantage.
we're not going to act like that. People that go to Yosemite are all American. It's a very high tourist spot.
Yeah.
It's one of the biggest tourist spots in the entire U.S. A lot of people from the out of the country go there for multiple reasons.
Yeah. Oh, yep. Old Faithful.
Oh,
Exactly.
I was an old yeller.
So
No, it's,
yeah, a lot of people from around the world come to the United States simply for our national parks and our state parks in different parts of the United States because we have some of the most beautiful landscape scenery around the world. A lot of other countries are smaller by comparison in size and have very large population density. So it's a lot of cities, and even when they have countryside, there's a lot of homes along that countryside or structures or social infrastructure.
Yeah, or they have like architecture that's like they're that, like,
Architecture.
there's a lot more places I feel like they have like more historical things to look at, like architecture and stuff like that, and like historical value as compared to like nature value. Like they don't have like national park, they don't have like things like that they really preserve unless you start getting in areas of obviously like Africa, India, like Australia, things like that. But like in like that Asia, like European, like South America. I mean, South America they have their own jungles and stuff, but like I think it's just getting to see the different environment too, because it's like, oh, like I've never seen these types of trees or things like that.
I feel like the sense of where we get that be like what were you talking about?
How other people, Chris was saying how in other areas of the world they have more historical value
There we go.
and architecture.
There we go. Where we get that sense of feeling is places like San Francisco
Hmm.
because we don't get that sense. You only get that because there's a different type of architecture there. There's a different type of building extremism
Mhm.
and a cityscape that goes on in San Francisco.
Yeah.
So that makes it like a touristy place. E- Other than the views, which there really isn't that much of, the Golden Gate, um, it's yeah, the ocean.
There's the
That's
not too far from the.
yeah, that's really it, dude. We're not. There's not that many freaking spots to be at in San Fran nowadays.
Yeah.
As touristy as it still is to this day, it's really not as glamorous as people make it out to be.
And the tourism aspect does come from more of appreciating the architecture, the actual architecture of the city,
Yeah.
and then enjoying the small amount of parks that they have there. But I also feel like more museums. They have a shitload of museums in San Francisco.
No, but even
and,
still,
and that's really what I mean. That's who's funding those places is people from around the world, not us, right? 'Cause
yeah.
we learn that kind of stuff in history books most of the time for
Mhm.
American history and American culture. But in a place like San Francisco, they have a Japanese American museum. They have a Chinese American museum where it tells the stories of the migrants that are coming over. So people do get to learn about uh, a part of their culture who has come to America for a little bit, even though they're still from the homeland, right? And then vice versa, you have children who have been here and their families visiting and they're going to museums and they're like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, like this is how.
But that's like that's like the East Coast equivalent of like not to like just distinct between culture, but like East Coast equivalent of going to Ellis Island,
Sure.
in which I got to go there as a kid, and it was actually crazy enough. My brother and my sister, like, so it was their dad, and like I went with them. Took me along on the trip. Their family name was actually like they have an ancestor on that wall, like as one of like the people that came over and like registered there, like. But also like getting to see that some of those insights is like, damn, it was shitty to immigrate.
Yeah, it absolutely was.
Like real shitty. You know what I mean? So I don't know. That was a quick little like non sequitur comment.
What's it called? Yeah, because I don't think people respect over here in America really good architecture outside of places like San Francisco
We don't really
because of
have
how
it, though.
you have a place like that in LA.
But that's
but
not our. Sorry.
No, the architecture because of how the extremism of the way they had to do it.
Because of the land.
But yeah, you look at certain houses like there's that famous one with the brick driveway that people always see. When
Oh,
they
the
see.
little windy.
Yeah, that's a certain
windy
street
road,
in San Francisco,
Yeah.
and the houses on that street are fucking gnarly. They're on a literal hill that's like this much grade, bro. It's insane.
Yeah.
Um,
But I think when I meant like why Americans don't really appreciate architecture and shit like that, like
yeah, I know what you mean.
historically, is because we can't go somewhere like, you know, go to another country like when, for example, like when I went to France, like I'm literally
Yeah,
walking by
yeah.
buildings that are still in
Yeah,
use,
yeah.
that are still active, that were built centuries ago.
Yeah, which is precisely why I'm talking
You know what I
about
mean?
what
Like we don't have that anything like that.
which is precisely why I'm talking about what we enjoy as American architecture, where people go to like see something that's different in America. The extent of where you get that is places like New York and San Francisco, where
Yeah.
you're seeing this cityscape that you don't see outside of anywhere else. That's our form of architecture. That's American architecture.
Or even if you include like the national parks and stuff like that as part of like, hey, it's a natural. Hey, we have just a natural architecture.
It's
Like
it's
this
those
is
two
what we
things
have
together.
because we don't have like a long term historical like culture.
Yeah, so American housing culture, right? American architecture culture comes from cheap manufacturing, right? We do not pride ourselves in long-term manufacturing. We pride ourselves in cheap turnaround, but being able to get long-standing structures that can be relatively easily disassembled, right? And then replaced. If you see that when you have the first colonists from the first colonists here into making the first colonies here in the United States, that they were using all the logging from the nearby forestry to make their cabins when had their first settlements. And in that aspect, there have been cabins around other parts of the world, but they weren't used as like part of architecture. They weren't used as part of the city's infrastructure, right? But that's not the case for the first colonies here in the United States. The first colonies cities were cabins, and they were that mentality of how do we get cheap infrastructure and how do we have quick turnaround, how do we have this built
Yeah,
up really quickly.
not something that's lasting.
Exactly.
Like there's very few things that are really lasting from
Mhm.
like our early colony days.
Yes.
Whereas, you know, like I said, where you go anywhere else in the world,
Yeah.
you're gonna find buildings that have been around for hundreds of
Yeah, yeah,
years longer than anything built here in America.
Yeah,
Which is
Yeah.
which to me that's actual having real culture, which that's why I feel like American
Yeah,
I don't know.
you know,
No,
the culture is just more
there is
capitalist.
American culture, but to me, I feel like it's lacking compared to
Yeah,
everywhere else in the
the
world because
American
we're such a melting pot.
the American architectural culture doesn't pride itself in lasting; it prides itself in material.
I think it's really a bias thing. One, how many states have you visited? Just give me the answer.
You're gonna take a minute to think. Please show me my phone.
You don't know how many states you visited?
Think about.
Other than going through, how many have you just like been at and chilled in? I've been in Arizona, I've been in Nevada, I've been in California, I've been in Colorado. That's five, maybe. I think it's four or five. I don't even know because I wasn't counting.
Washington,
the state.
Oregon, California, New Mexico, Nevada, Arizona.
I've been in Oregon, but I wouldn't consider it because I was there for like a night.
Okay, so I got 6. So New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Georgia, South Carolina. I went on like a 2-week vacation down there, like split between the 2 states, and then California.
Cool. Yeah. So yeah, as far as like the architecture that we have here on the Pacific Coast, like Logan said, the only lasting architecture does seem to be in San Francisco
Yeah.
because it's a more artsy type place.
Which
But
is-
everywhere else, it's
yeah.
just like how do we build the cheapest
Yeah.
home on this hill?
I mean, on the East Coast, it's like Philadelphia has Independence Hall.
Mhm.
That still stands from the colonial period. I've been there, like I've seen Liberty Bell. That's like an old.
Even then, it has to be constantly like restored.
Yeah, it's still like it's upkept and everything.
Mhm.
Where it's like still partly made to be modern.
Yeah.
Where like it's not like we have structures that are like, oh, it's upkept to make sure it's safe and it's going to stand, but they're not modernizing it. Where we're modernizing some of our older things. Like
Mhm.
even when I had a camping trip to Washington's Crossing, or no, kind of camping trip, a school field trip to Washington's Crossing when I was a kid in New Jersey, from where he went from Trenton to Pennsylvania to That's where like it basically turned the tide of the Revolutionary War because he surprised them on like Christmas Day and everything. So I got to see like where they launched from. Like there was still like remnants of like the camp shop, like a boat site that they used. Like they had some of the actual boats, but still most of it had been built to preserve all that.
Hmm.
So it's not like any of it was really original.
I'm still hung up on the thing that you said about like us not like having as much culture or any culture
It-
or whatever.
I because we're such a melting pot. Like all right, so
That is
all
our
right,
culture. That's American culture.
so no, but what
Being a
I'm
melting pot is American.
but that's not what I mean when I say culture. Like, you know what I mean? Like, because even still, like, what everything about America is from everywhere else. You know, it is its own
That's the
thing, which is
idea.
its own culture. But at the same time, I look at it where it's like, you know, when I've like talked to people or seen people from overseas, like, and they're talking about like actually having like, oh, there's like ritual, there's like little things that they do in their day. There's certain habits and things that are
That
actually like
yeah.
traditions and everything that have sprung back hundreds or thousands of years. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
because they've had that for so long. Whereas us, like, everything's constantly just changing, rotating. Like, unless
Yeah.
like you
Exactly.
are like a traditional family, like or like a newly immigrated family, or
Well,
like that's like really hardcore about it.
yeah, we're so new as a country. I feel that that's the one thing that we really have to consider is that all these other countries, especially on the other side of the world, have hundreds of years of development ahead of us as societies. Whereas the United States, we only have until as far back as said the 1700s, so just a few hundred years. It's going to constantly change and constantly evolve.
No,
And I
yeah.
feel like what American culture is in this exact moment is the unification of other cultures. And I feel like American culture is way more social than any other culture in the world, simply because that racial barrier or that ethnic barrier has to get overcome in order to make peace with one another. And that's the reason why it's tearing the country apart right now, and it's very divisive, is because people aren't willing to get along with one another, right? But when you really understand that American culture is getting along with one another, or at least that's what it should be. Is
That's what the idea
the
was.
idea, the intention, right? And if you actually uphold that, right, then that's what we can identify with as American culture as a whole. So you're right; it doesn't have its own one specific thing. Like this
Yeah.
particular is an American, but that's because we're
Yeah.
so new and we started off as an amalgamation of things from the very begin with. We're not going to have anything that's wholly original except for the idea of collection of different things,
Yeah.
and that's what's wholly original to American
No, and
culture.
I agree with that. Like, and that's I'm not trying to say like there was zero American culture. I just look at it as like there's not. It doesn't feel as authentic or as real as when you look at other things where it's like, oh, you have these families and everything that
That's and that's
oh, we've had these traditions and like there's all these things that
that's
like
where my question of
we can just trace backwards.
that's where my question of how many states have you been into, because like it comes down to where have you been, how much have you experienced, and like the states of like how many people do keep traditions alive in where they are, how many families do keep true to what they do and how they do it,
I'm
and the
talking about like
generations that
the
follow
old
that.
world tradition that they
Exactly.
brought when they
Exactly.
immigrated
That's what I'm
here.
talking about.
Okay.
Those things. You haven't been around and interacted with those people to put America out of the to the wayside, like the way you are calling saying that we don't have culture, because I haven't even experienced or interacted with any of those people, any of the other states, and I'm not willing to do that because I know that there's a lot of people that withhold a generation's worth of not withhold uphold generations worth of knowledge and things that have been passed down to them and that are important to them, but may not be important to us because we're not around them and we're not interacting with them.
Well, I'm not saying it matters at the level of importance. Like that has nothing to do with it, but I get what you mean.
Yeah,
But I'm just talking about in general, just like
Another important aspect is our age, right? We're millennials, right? I think that is a huge tipping point for perspective. We have access to the internet, which changes our perception of the past and the future at the same time. I think that's very important to wrap our head around, because when it comes to the idea of keeping old world traditions, right? There is an aspect of, can we even find information on these old world traditions that is accurate?
Oh, yeah.
The internet is available.
You definitely can.
Hold on. The internet
There's
is available.
it's
The internet is available, but access to tools like ChatGPT and seeing that ChatGPT has had instances of not really being able to relay
that's why you don't go to
accurate
chat.
information.
That's why you don't
That's
go
why
to
you
AI.
don't.
You
Hold
reach
on,
out to people.
Chris, but you have to understand
Don't use AI.
that you have to understand that the cat's out of the bag. That's like telling people not to use alcohol at this point.
No, I'm saying if you're trying to research certain things like that, like you're better off trying to actually. The only way you're gonna find out real like traditions and
Yes.
stuff like that is by connecting with people.
Yes.
That like any Google search or internet search is not going to be as accurate as you actually reaching out and talking to people that live in those places that can actually like, oh yeah, this is what we've done
Yes.
for
But
hundreds,
in this
thousands of
day and age,
you know what I mean?
that's harder for people to do, is what I'm saying. In this,
I feel like it's easier
it's
because
it.
of how much access we have to connect with people.
See, that's what you would think. That's exactly what I'm saying, right? Like you would think that the internet gives you that access to be able to
That's all
connect with
social
other
media
people.
is connecting with people.
Yes, but
Or cloud chasing.
the problem is the social media lends itself to misinformation and disinformation being populated on there. And that's the real issue. And you have things like generative AI that is just being put into everybody's hands. And once it does, like if it's in if it's in Twitter X, if it's in Instagram, right there on the search bar telling you to use that feature, you know people are going to use that feature regardless as to whether or not that's the
Well,
smart
yeah.
thing to do. They're going to rely on that because they believe that this source of information is trusted and vetted. And for some traditions, it may provide accurate information, and for
I
others,
agree.
it may provide a warped sense or only an English variation of one thing.
Exactly. Where it's not like the actual tradition. It's
Yeah,
like, oh, it's going to show like a summarized
a
version or something like that.
summarized
You know what I
version.
mean? It's not going to actually like when like I'm talking about like being able to understand like, oh no, you have to do it this way, this way. It's going to give you like, oh, you do this, 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 and this. Whereas like, oh, you reach out to somebody that actually does it as they've been living that way for
Mhm.
whole families for multiple generations. Like, well, yeah, that's right, but technically, it's kind of like more you do this, but while you're doing this, you have to make sure this is done. Like there's stuff that it might leave out because it's summarizing
As
information.
someone who has had to research my own culture multiple times as a kid before the use of AI, right? I actually did have to find vetted sources, and I had a little bit more ability to figure out what was true or not true, and get those vetted sources upheld. Now, today's day and age, these kids don't really have access to be able to say that's true information that I'm receiving on my phone or that I'm receiving from the textbook because so many things are warped. During the time when I was learning all of this stuff, I felt like it was not something to uh, it was not something to take lightly. It was more, but also I didn't take it too seriously. It was just being aware, right? And having a level of self awareness came without constantly being online or constantly having to rely on the internet. And I think that's the problem with today's kids, or at least today's youth, and trying to uphold those old traditions, is that they're not going to really be able to when the sources aren't vetted, and that's a huge problem when it comes to. Oh, one thing that I had to do when I was learning into my own culture was how to interact with my parents and the way that they would provide information towards me. Chris had mentioned that one thing that somebody should do is to be social and get that information from people as opposed to the internet. I have tried to reach out to my own parents, and in my personal anecdotal experience, I got more
Are you talking about getting like your own culture from other
Yeah,
people
yeah, getting culture from people that are part of my
in the
culture.
culture? That sounds nice.
That
That would be nice.
they they have a lot of various perspectives. Some and a lot of majority have said, "Hey, look, like you gotta just conform, right? You gotta just be American. Do what you can to pass through. Be that bilingual guy, be the Americanized version. Just do what you can to get by, because that's what our people have worked for is to be whiter, apparently. And then I had other people in my family tell me like, no, you gotta hold on to your roots. Like you gotta double down and don't let them take away your identity. And as a Mexican American, it's always been a struggle. I've always had to be more Mexican than other Mexicans, more American than other Americans, and it's a very strong identity crisis that never truly goes away.
Yeah, I think this is a very important thing to talk about because personally, I've never had to deal with any type of identity crisis as having to deal with, the type of culture you come from, identifying with said culture, and assimilating or being a part of that. Is very It's a very interesting topic because I've never felt like I've belonged anywhere, so I never really felt like I had the need to need a culture or whatever.
Logan's very comedic, and he's gotten in a lot of different social groups, by being the funny guy, and that's what I love about him because he's a hype guy. In my attempts to do that in middle school, right, is in my attempts to be the funny guy, right, because I got the wit for it. Um, the racist jokes of being a beaner, right?
Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
always got the majority laugh. Right?
Chris starts laughing
It
when
doesn't
we
matter.
say the
Yeah,
beaner joke.
yeah.
I don't, I don't, I don't know why. Just all right. I know it's gonna sound shitty, but out of all like terms, I don't know why the word beaner is like the funniest.
It is a funny term, and
I don't know why.
that's the
It's
reason why I resorted to it because that would be the one that gets the
I'm
laugh.
canceled.
That that would be the one that got the laughs, and it didn't matter what my retort was. If they resorted to a racist joke at the end, they won, right? And there was nothing I could do to fight that. It was a constant be like, okay, well, I can't be the funny guy when my peers are all white, and I make a white joke back. Right? It doesn't
Yeah.
land the same because
Yeah.
all of my peers are not going to take that well. And
Yeah.
it didn't. It wasn't until I found myself in an environment where I was predominantly Mexican around me and other different cultures to where I was able to utilize that a lot better and be the
Yeah.
funny guy. But early in middle school and especially in elementary school when I was finding myself, it was tough because I was the butt of a lot of jokes just for being Mexican. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so your struggle was that struggle constant because you were in Mexican ethnic group stuff
Yeah.
during high school and even college, right? Or
It
community college, right?
it was it's always been a struggle no matter what, right? Even to this day and age, I still find myself having struggles with it. I get identified with so many different types of groups of people that I I don't feel get unnecessary. I feel get unnecessary hate. Uh, but in college was the time where I felt it the least because there were so many different people all trying to learn, and we were all there for a higher education. That I felt that any kind of immaturity was not really dealt with like that. Or it's like we all kind of like, okay, understood that we don't make jokes like that. We don't talk like that. That we have a higher sense because we're all taking classes of different culture, like culture studies, some type of ethnic studies or some type of culture studies was a requirement at Yuba College. So you had to take a class that was outside of your comfortability, right? I took a Chicano studies class, so I was something that I was already a little bit familiar with. I took a jazz appreciation class, and I took an African American appreciation class. Yeah, jazz appreciation.
Jazz
Yeah,
appreciation.
those.
Yet I don't hear any jazz during work. I'm disappointed
Oh, okay. Well,
because he doesn't appreciate jazz apparently.
I do.
I'm a scat man.
I will say that the class itself, after taking the entire class, I saw that Ken Burns had the PBS special, and then I realized that what we were watching for the first 15 minutes of each jazz appreciation class was just bits from the Ken Burns PBS special, right? Yeah, dude. I had no idea until
PBS was the shit.
yeah,
growing up.
it was lit. I was like, it
Yo.
was so informative.
Reading Rainbow.
Take a look.
It's in a book.
Reading Rainbow.
Yeah. And that's how we're going to go ahead and wrap it up tonight, guys. Thank you for joining us on Talking High Culture. We really appreciate everybody joining out.
Oh yeah.
Thank you for leaving a like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for smoking with us tonight.
Let us know what you guys are smoking on in the comments tonight.
Yeah, we're wrapping up. Thank you for talking about comedians with us. Thank you for talking about camping with us. Thank you for talking about culture and cultural identity with us.
You got any? You got any culture? You got any culture things that you want us to talk about or look into? Drop it in the chat. We're always happy to take suggestions too. Deep dives.
Words of wisdom that I can impart. One must always go with the flow.
I think I'll always say this one because it never fails, but pay it forward to your fellow being, your fellow human. Pay it forward. Be nice, pay it forward. It'll always do good.
Laughs and garden, dig it.
Thank you for joining us tonight, and have a good night. We love you guys.
Later.
Don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. See you later. Join us on all platforms, talkinghighculture.com.
33 views? What the fuck? Let's go.